or visit jitterbug.com.
Welcome back to Prime News on HLN. I think a lot of people thought Congressman Joe Wilson was way out of line, interrupting President Obama, shouting, "You lied," during his speech to Congress and the nation. But was he being racist? Former President Jimmy Carter getting in on the debate, talking about people who oppose the president. Here he is, talking to NBC Nightly News.
An overwhelming portion of the intensely demonstrated animosity toward President Barack Obama is based on the fact that he is a black man, that he's African American.
All right, you were their overwhelming portion. Does it mean that those who passionately oppose the president, that a majority of those folks are racist? We're taking your calls. Really want to hear from you on this one. 1-877-TEL-HLN is the number. We welcome back Roland Martin, political analyst for our sister network at CNN. Also joining us, Sarah Setmayer, Republican strategist. Sarah, I'll start with you on this one. Are you seeing that, a racist route to those who oppose President Obama?
No, what I'm seeing is the left using racism as a red herring to try to dissuade, squash, poison legitimate dissent on the part of the American people who are suspicious, skeptical of President Obama's policies. And the left continues to use racism as an excuse because what that does is it stops people in their tracks. And I think it's grossly un-American to do that, to make people feel guilty for the fact that they actually have a legitimate opinion and a legitimate reason to oppose the president's policies. I think it's absolutely absurd. What Joe Wilson did, I agree 100% it was out of line.
Yep.
I agree with the sentiment, just not the venue. That's not the time or place to do it. And my boss, Congressman Rohrabacher, was one of the few Republicans who actually did vote in favor of admonishing Representative Wilson because it was the principle. Nothing against Phil Wilson, but the principle. You cannot, disrespect the decorum of the House, no matter what.
Shouldn't have done it. Roland, to Tara's point, does it shut down the conversation when a former president says this? What's your take on it?
Well, first of all, it does not shut down the conversation. I certainly agree, though, that when you begin to say this action is racist, people naturally say, well, oh, no, this is not racist in terms of criticism. I do believe there is legitimate criticism from folks on the right, from folks who are independent as it relates to in terms of the president's health care policy. But I will say this, though. We have seen significant levels where race plays a role. Keep in mind, we have seen reports that attacks on this president or threats on this president up 400% since he's been elected. What's the one difference between him and the previous 43? That's one issue. When you have people who are conservative talk show hosts, when you have Tammy Bruce who calls the First Lady trash, when you have Glenn Beck who says the president hates white people and white culture, when you have Rush Limbaugh today says in America, white kids on a school bus being beaten by black kids, assigning that to Obama's America. You have seen signs, or people have held up signs. There was a sign at one of the rallies over the weekend, I don't want this country to be a third world country, go back to Kenya. What you have to have, though, you have to have people at those rallies say, that is uncalled for. We can disagree, but you're not going to have those kind of racist signs. But I cannot deny the reality that there are individuals, there are people who have been involved, who have been critical of the president, who also have used racist language and have actually projected that kind of image, and that, frankly, is wrong and should be condemned, but I cannot paint a broad brush.
Okay, let's listen a little bit more of former President Jimmy Carter. Again, this is on NBC Nightly News, and we'll get some calls in and continue our conversation. Again, here's the former president.
That racism information still exists, and I think it's bubbled up to the surface because of a belief among many white people, not just in the South but around the country, that African Americans are not qualified to lead this great country.
That's quite a statement there, and I think that is somewhat broad brush, because I think, Roland, I'll go back to you. When he says many white people, there's probably some people going, wait a minute, I can't oppose President Obama and I'm going to be dubbed a racist? That shuts down the conversation. Go ahead.
But I think also what has to happen, we have to also broaden the conversation in that our views about issues, in terms of, and here's a guy, 85 years old, who has seen and heard different levels of debate,
Certainly.
whose ears are tuned to that. And so I think for President Jimmy Carter, when he hears certain things, when he sees certain things, he recognizes what that looks like. And so what he is saying is that there's a different level, a different an intensity, a ferociousness, if you will, to some of the criticism. I cannot say all. I can't even.
Right.
We don't know what's in the minds of people.
No.
But I do think we cannot overlook the reality, though, that race still plays a role, and that we have examples of this playing a role even in this current debate.
Okay, there are a lot of calls in, and guys, I'll try and move the ball around, stick and move a little bit. But Sarah, me personally, I have somewhat of a problem with a former president saying this.
Yeah.
If it's a pundit saying it, okay, but Jimmy Carter saying this, when he's dubbing many white people, that's, has Jimmy Carter been to a Tea Party or some of these places where he thinks he's seen some of this animosity? Go ahead, Sarah.
Listen, first of all, Jimmy Carter, in my opinion, has been off the reservation on many issues. He was a failed president. He had a failed presidency. He continues to stick his nose out in things. He's completely irrelevant. He pals around with Hamas and, a terrorist sponsoring organization.
Okay,
so, Jimmy Carter to me is, it's blemishing his legacy as if he doesn't know what happened. Let me finish. I did not interrupt you. Now, as far as being able to read the minds of individuals, it is an absolute broad brush. And yes, is there racism? Does it still exist in this country? Yes, it does. But at what point do we get beyond that? White America elected Barack Obama. He is the most powerful man in the world.
Guys, let's get a call in real quick. Let me get a call in real quick. Bob in Wisconsin. Bob, go ahead.
How do you do?
Hey, go ahead, Bob.
I really agree with the young lady who's speaking. I believe Jimmy Carter is way off base, and that racism is any color, any creed. And we as Americans need to come together as Americans. I'm not a German American. I was born here. I'm an American of German descent.
Okay. Bob, thanks for the call.
I got to say, when Tara sits here and says he's destroying his legacy, but she just ripped him to straight that he's a failed president. This man has done, frankly, more to advance the issue of peace around this globe and this country than Tara ever has. So you're disrespecting a former president.
Carl, let's your rebuttal when we come back. Let's take a quick break. More of your calls, 1-877-TEL-HLN. Call in.
We're introducing millions to Silk Heart Health, shown to lower cholesterol in just 4 weeks. So join the Silk Million Hearts Challenge at silksoymilk.com and help us grow a million hearts strong. Silk, strength in every pore.
How long have you had your car insurance?
How long have I had my car insurance? I don't know, 8, 10 years?
I couldn't tell you, but things were a lot less expensive back then.
If you're 50 or over, you should take a new look at your auto insurance. You may be overpaying.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Old policy, old rate.
And thanks to your experience behind the wheel, you might save $350 by switching to the AARP auto insurance program from the Hartford. Plus, you'll get benefits that reward your driving record, like our promise that you won't be dropped.
Wait, you won't drop me? Seriously?
That's right, you won't be dropped. And if you know anyone who's been dropped by their insurance company, you know that's a hassle you don't need.
Especially these days.
Plus, you'll get Recover Care, which helps pay for everyday needs like house cleaning, lawn care, and pet services if you're injured in an accident.
So my auto insurance is going to help pay the house cleaning if I'm injured?
Did you say lawn